Sixers have been eliminated Game 7. I was with Mike McGarry last night. He said Sixers in a blowout. Didn't go that way. We'll break it down. What happened last night and now what is next? Obviously, Mike, Ben Simmons is one of the more polarizing discussions, even when he's normal Ben Simmons. If you just get a normal version of Ben Simmons, he's a polarizing discussion. That wasn't a normal version of Ben Simmons last night or this entire series. Something happened in this series. He turned into Markelle Fultz.
Well, I would argue that for the playoffs, that was sort of a normal version of Ben Simmons that we saw. I've said it several times on this show. I go back to the series against Toronto, where in 51 fourth quarter minutes, he took 6 shots. This time in the 7-game series in the fourth quarters, he took 4 shots. So he has regressed somewhat, but it certainly wasn't out of character or not the Ben Simmons that we haven't seen in the playoffs before. And you can't win when you have when he plays like that.
Well, this is almost on a whole new level, though. I mean, don't you think the foul shooting really brought it to another? Like, he didn't shoot a lot because he just doesn't shoot. He didn't even look to he wasn't even in the area code of wanting to shoot.
Yeah, I mean the foul shooting. Anytime you shoot 33% from the foul line, it's a problem. He was taken out of games, so he did go backwards. And he's gone backwards all 4 of his seasons. But certainly, while it might have been worse than expected, you can't say that it came completely out of the blue or that people haven't been warning or sitting there saying you can't win in the playoffs with this guy and this is why. It was just taken to the maximum level.
Yeah. In this series. If he shoots 60%, which is where he's at for the series, the series would be over by now.
Possibly. I just think it's very difficult. What do you do with Ben Simmons? What do you bring him back? Do you trade him? Everybody's got an opinion today. I think you got to let things settle for a while, but you clearly can't win. You can't win. I'll say this: Embiid and Simmons together, I don't think works. One of them has to go, and it's not going to be Embiid.
Right. Oh, I mean, at this point, after what you saw last night, I mean, he had no interest in being a part of the offense last night. And then I thought it affected everybody. I think it felt like the thought of we are this team that we are in part of what he brings, what the uniqueness that he has. No other team really has what he brings. We are who we are because of him, and him not being that guy, we know we can't win. So you were only there because of what he brings, and because he wasn't that guy, they couldn't win. So it shows that what he adds is valuable, but when he didn't have it, they couldn't win.
Well, what he adds is, I guess, in the words of Draymond Green, the Golden State Warriors, there are 82-game players, and then there are 16-game players. Yep. Meaning there are regular season players and there are playoff players. In the regular season, where you can get up and down, where there's more transition, yes, Simmons is valuable. But in the playoffs, and you say, does it affect everybody? Sure. Play 4-on-5, it affects everybody. I mean, and basically, when you're I can't tell the fans this, we're lucky enough to be at the games. When you're at the games, it gives you a completely different angle than you see on TV, and you see the way the other team defends him. You see how far Danilo Gallinari is off him. You see Gallinari sitting in the middle of the lane, basically playing a one-man zone because he doesn't have to worry about Ben Simmons. And when you see that, you see just how tough it is. And you saw the frustration last night. Embiid cracked a little bit in the post game. He kind of said, hey, that's the turning point of the game when Simmons passed up the dunk. People I'm sure can go online and see Embiid's reaction to Simmons passing up the dunk in the moment on the court. It's a problem. Now, today, Doc Rivers comes out and he stands by Ben Simmons. But, here's the deal. The Philadelphia 76ers are going to stand by Ben Simmons and pump Ben Simmons up until they trade Ben Simmons. And that's just the reality of it.
Well, let's look at that. I mean, obviously, everybody wants him gone now. And the flip side of the coin is, did these playoffs completely devalue? This was a guy they didn't want to trade for James Harden. They didn't want to include him in deals. So can you make deals that include him in there and get anything of value in return?
there's always trades that can be made. I don't think you're going to take Ben Simmons and trade him one-on-one for a player like James Harden. You might have to take Ben Simmons and combine him with, Maxey, with Thibault, with, multiple draft picks. And then I think you get a player. I think that you watch the Sixers and how effective Seth Curry was in the series working a two-man game with Joel Embiid. And all that comes to your mind is, well, what if somebody was really, really good at the guard position working that same two-man game with Embiid? And I think, getting a big-time point guard in here to work with Embiid is the number one priority. And Simmons is the guy. Because you look at the rest of the roster, who, if you don't trade Simmons for that guy, who are you trading for that guy? Who on the rest of the roster has value? Tobias Harris, what did he do for his value in the last couple of minutes last night? Not much. What value does Danny Green have? What value does Curry have? Okay, Maxey and Thibault, not by themselves aren't bringing back stars. This is a roster with, one guy who's, tradable right now. And as low as his value is right now, it's Simmons.
Pretty crazy to think about watching that game last night. You watch Atlanta come down the court, and you're thinking confidently, they're going to find a way to get a bucket. Collins is outworking you. Herter's they got a mismatch on that side. Gallinari seemed to hit a big shot all the time. They didn't even have DeAndre Hunter and Reddish, who, by the way, was a top 10 pick, did not play in the series. He wasn't, an exceptional talent for them, but they were missing two rotational a starter and a rotational. And by the way, Bogdanovich, I think, pretty much left the game and never came back last night. So you lost to an undermanned Atlanta team. So you take a look at this Sixers team and wonder, last year at the end of the season, Mike, you were like, man, the arrow's pointing down. They're in some trouble with this Horford deal and Richardson. They figured out a way to kind of flip it. You can make an argument that they probably exceeded most people's expectations. But now it's like, where do you go from here with this roster? As you mentioned, there's not a lot of huge assets here.
Yeah, and why did they lose that game last night? Because even though Trae Young was 5 for 23 from the floor, and by the way, he went 5 for 23, and he still didn't shrink from the moment and still sank a big three-pointer from, about 30 feet in the closing seconds. Atlanta won because Trae Young can create shots for himself and his teammates in close games in the half court. The Sixers do not have a player like that. They try to Embiid can't do it. They try to have Embiid do it. He commits 8 turnovers. Let's not let Embiid skate here with any, it's been a little lost in all the Ben Simmons stuff. Let's not let Embiid skate away here. 8 turnovers in game 6, 8 turnovers in game 7. And then he made sure to let us know in the post-game interviews last night, hey, I did all I can. I left it all out there. So, let's not let him skate on blame. Right
there's blame to go around. And look, I'm not a big the coach lost a game kind of guy. They have a role in games. I don't put it typically at the top of the list. And I'm not saying Rivers cost him that game. But, man, his hands are really tied with this whole how this Simmons thing's unfolded right in his lap in the middle of these playoffs where everything I've done all season long, I now have to figure out what to do because the guy that I counted on has turned into somebody that he's not. I felt kind of like his hands were a little tied, and he's going to Maxey. Maxey didn't have it last night. All right, let me try George Hill. Well, he didn't have it. All right, let me pop Milton out there and see if that works. This is all because of what he's getting from Ben Simmons.
Yeah, 2 things on Doc Rivers. One, the substitutions were a little bizarre.
Horrible.
Last night, throwing stuff at the wall. And Shake Milton doesn't play the first 3 quarters. All of a sudden, he's out there for the 4th quarter. You're just hoping he hits shots at that point. You're buying a lottery ticket. You're buying a scratch off at the Wawa, and you're hoping it comes back with $20 when you put Milton in the game at that point.
100%.
The other thing, Doc Rivers made the decision in game 1 to put Danny Green on Trae Young, and that didn't work, and that cost the Sixers game 1 and put them in a hole in this series immediately. And also, my thing about Doc Rivers and Ben Simmons is at least Brett Brown acknowledged that the shooting and the foul shooting was an issue. Doc Rivers lectured us for a season. He said, Ben and Joel haven't won yet. Oh, Ben is a treasure. Oh, all this criticism about Ben. Ben's going to get – if I was Ben, I'd get tired of this. Oh, 1 of 2 foul shots is enough for us. 1 point of possession is enough. take Ben Simmons out of the game. If you suggest that, then I know you know nothing about basketball. So Doc Rivers lectured people for, the better part of the season and the first 3 weeks of the playoffs. And now he's going to be sitting at home watching the rest of the playoffs.
Yeah, I know that the people talking about trading Ben. And here's the one thing, too, with that is interesting. This team is kind of built based around what, his defensive abilities, getting these guys open. Is Seth Curry the same player if Ben Simmons isn't getting them? You know what I mean? Like, how does that affect Tobias Harris, Seth Curry, and that group of guys when they're not getting to play with a guy that draws so much attention?
Well, here's what I would say about that is I am beyond caring that Ben Simmons gets Seth Curry open on a Tuesday in February in Charlotte or a Wednesday in March in Sacramento. Ben Simmons can get you open in the regular season. Gee, that's just great. But Ben Simmons wasn't getting anybody open last night or in, any of the previous games in this series. So, it's great that Ben Simmons can get people open in January. I'm not interested in Ben Simmons getting people open in January. I'm interested in Ben Simmons getting people open in May and June. And in his career now, 4 seasons, he has proven that he cannot do it.
So is he back here next year?
I don't think he's back here next year. I think, everybody, what can you trade him for? What can you do this? I think there's a market for him. I think, I heard you mention before, we all said after last season, there's no way Daryl Morey can trade Horford and Richardson. There's no way he can move those contracts. He figured out a way to do it. You're just not going to trade Ben Simmons head up for somebody great, but can you make him part of a package where you package him and 3 first-round draft picks and maybe, I know this still drives some Sixer fans crazy, but, throw the great Tyrese Maxey and the great Matisse Thybulle in the deal also, or one of the two in the deal and package them for a player. I think he can be moved in that case, and I think you have to do it because I think it's clear now that Embiid and Simmons can't win together.
All right. Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City. We will see what's next. Daryl Morey tomorrow at 11 a.m. will speak, and I'm imagining that will be one of the first questions. Are you planning on moving or thinking about moving Ben Simmons? So we'll hear what Daryl Morey has to say. Mike's back on Wednesday, and we got plenty more here on the Sports Bash. All right, Mike, take care, man.
All right, we'll see you down the road. Thanks.